So I think we can start. So as I was saying, hello, welcome. My name is Irving Huerta. I am a research associate and also the convener of the Data Schools, the Center for Digital Humanities here in Cambridge. So I am very pleased to be here with you and with some of my colleagues who are going to take part in this year's Cultural Heritage School. And as I was saying also at the beginning, we are just recording our participations, the introduction of the course, but none of the interactions with you, the participants, are going to be recorded. So I am going to now share my screen just to give you an introduction for what we're going to be doing for this year's Cultural Heritage Data School. So yeah, as you probably know already, our date is the 24th of January 2022. Sorry, our Cultural Heritage Data School is going to run from the 2nd to the 15th of March this year. And what we're going to do today is we're just going to give a brief introduction, then a presentation of the content by my colleague Anna Alexander, short description of one of the modules by Mary Chester Catwell, and then also another introduction of a module by Meng Liu, one of our staff, or one of our members of the staff. So yeah, just to give some names of people who are here with us today. We have Anna Alexander, who is Director of Learning here at CDH. She's going to be responsible for Module 1 and 6. We have also Meng Liu here with us, who is a Methods Fellow. She's going to be responsible for Module 2. And as I said, Mary Chester Catwell. Okay, so a little bit of background for the data schools that we have at Cambridge. We have certain objectives. We want to democratize access to tools, the means of investigation, of research. So we serve as a connection between academics and civil society. We want to foster development of ethical practices in digital research. We want to encourage dialogue between academia, civil society, the public sector, right? We want to provide also practical instruction and exchange across sectors. So we are very interested also in participation. So it's also space for mutual learning. In terms of what is the Cultural Heritage Data School, it's just one out of 2 of our data schools that we run in the year. So the Cambridge Cultural Heritage Data School is led by CDH. It's an online intensive program aiming at bringing together participants from, the GLAM sector, galleries, libraries, archives, and museums, and the academia to explore methods used to create, visualize, research, analyze, and investigate together. So who should apply? This is probably one of the first questions that you may have if you are one person who would be suitable for applying. And we are very willing to welcome applications from professionals working in the GLAM sector, galleries, libraries, archives, and museums. So you don't have to be a pure academic to join. Actually, we encourage people from the sector, from the industry, to apply. We're very happy to discuss things that you use in your daily work. Also volunteers in community-led projects related, of course, to the cultural heritage sector. Researchers, it's also open to researchers. And students are also welcome, but we are going to prioritize some of the applications that are actually engaged with the sector. We want to make that bridge with the industry. So that's something that we are very keen on. And well, also what we want to do and how we want to tackle some of the imbalances and inequalities. We are committed to democratizing access to people from disadvantaged backgrounds. We encourage applications from all around the world, but in particular from the Global South. We will be very keen on hearing from people in places in the Global South. I think the only requirement is that you can make it to the times where when we are going to run the schools. So we usually do it between 1:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. to allow people in other latitudes to join us. Something to bear in mind, of course, and something we can also talk about. In terms of the costs, this is one of the interesting sections for some of you, probably. We have a standard rate of £245. This is for organizations with paid staff, large organizations already working in the industry. But we can have the opportunity to apply for a discounted rate if it is needed. And also we have a concessionary rate of £45 for students, the unemployed, community projects, unfunded projects. So if you are in one of these circumstances or conditions, you can also state it very clear in the application. And there is a small number of bursaries as well. That's something that my colleagues can talk about later on as well, available for those who can demonstrate financial need. I think lastly, from my part, is important date, as I was saying. So the deadline for applications is the 30th of January, 2022. And they have the link. Also, you have the QR code in case you want to use your phone to then follow on the website. And of course, the data school, it's taking place from the 2nd of March to the 15th of March, 2022. We're going to respond to other questions, but in the meantime, I'm going to hand over to Anne Alexander, Dr. Anne, who's going to talk about the content of this year's Coleridge Heritage School. So thank you.
Thanks very much for the introduction, Irving. I'm going to share from my screen. Hang on, I'll just share from mine. It's slightly easier. Just give me a second. Right. Okay, can everyone see my overview of the curriculum, hopefully? So as Irving said, I'm going to go very briefly through the content of this year's school, and then after that we're going to go through in a little bit more detail of some of the modules, because we have some of our teaching team are here in the room with us. Sorry, I need to just clicked on that by accident to go back. So we have 6 modules. Each one consists of two live sessions, which are split apart, so that the idea is you'll do one session as an introduction to the module content, and then there'll be time for you to work on material in your own time, to follow through exercises, to carry out activities related to the content of the module, and then come back together for another live session. One of the things that I would just want to emphasize actually is that we very much encourage people to see this as a live event. We're not very keen to have people participating if you can't engage in the live sessions. We obviously do understand that not all the time people's internet connections may be slightly unstable, or other technical issues might intervene, but the expectation is that you're in the virtual classroom with us and interacting. And we don't take a very large number of participants either. This is a relatively small group of people, so it'll be around 15 to 20 participants. So there is a really high level of interactivity in a lot of the sessions. The first live session is one that I'm leading. It's on project design, data collection and wrangling. Then we'll follow with introduction to text mining using the programming language R. We then have another text-based module looking at digital text markup and with the text encoding initiative frameworks, followed by named entity recognition with Python. We then have a module looking at the basic principles of data visualization, followed by a final one on data sustainability, preservation and destruction. As I mentioned before, we have a number of live sessions, so 14 hours of live sessions spread over the 2 weeks. Around 15 hours of self-paced work. Some of the modules take slightly longer than others. And Mary will be here to answer questions about the time commitment in her module, which has an option of doing slightly more work if you follow a track that involves the coding element in her course. Course materials include also access to further tutorials, resources, and other materials that are available online. We encourage you as far as possible to make as much use of the time during the school to use our availability to you. So in between sessions, we have a Q&A forum operating on our virtual learning environment, which we use Moodle. It's an email-based forum, but we do encourage people to make quite a lot of use of posing questions and interacting with other participants and asking us for advice if you get stuck with something. We also usually run a social space during the school, which is, in previous years, we've used a kind of virtual conference space called Wonder that is open to school participants during the course of the school. So you can actually arrange to meet people in an ad hoc way. And sometimes we run activities in the social space alongside the formal sessions. In addition, we're planning a public workshop which is open to data school participants, will take place during the course of the school, probably in the second Tuesday of the school, but is also a public event. So it's an opportunity for people who have not registered for the school to go over some of the same kinds of content and engage with some of the same sorts of questions as we talk about in the school, inside the school program. And that's usually an afternoon. In terms of technical requirements, then obviously you do need an internet connection. We will be using Zoom as we're doing for this call today. And you need a laptop or a desktop computer on which you can install software. So for example, if you're using a work device, you will need to check with your administrator that you have the rights to do software installation if the packages that we're using are not already available on your machine. We use mostly open source software. All of them have no cost attached except Oxygen XML. However, it's available for free in a trial version, and that is something that we'll provide full details about how to install any software that's needed. The other software is all free to use. We do also provide support as far as we can remotely in terms of helping you get over any technical hitches in terms of software installation, and full instructions on the installation will be provided before the sessions start. Just to briefly introduce the teaching team, particularly those who are not here. So Hugh Jones, who's teaching the module on TEI, is unfortunately not well today and couldn't join us. And Tobias Lund, who's teaching on the module on data visualization, was not able to join us today, but Meng and Mary are here and will be introducing themselves in a minute. So I'm going to come off the screen share and just move very briefly into an overview of my first module, which is module 1. As one of the things that you will get to know in terms of the way we approach the content of the data school is that we attempt to structure it around the life cycle of a data project. So therefore we go from the early stages of a project, research design, the acquisition of data, some of the ethical and practical considerations that you need to go into as you're designing a project, and that's really the introductory module that I teach. Then there are a number of different tracks really that you can sort of take through this experience of a data project. You'll be given access through the content of the school to a whole range of different sets of skills and methods. The second one is that we'll be working on this year is an introduction to text mining with the programming language R. And I'm going to hand over now to Meng, who's going to just briefly introduce herself and tell us a little bit about what to expect from her module.
Thank you, and hello everyone. It's really nice to see all of you here. As Anne introduced, I will be teaching the second module, which is Introduction to Text Mining with R. But before I go into the content of the module, just a caveat and my apologies in advance. I'm still recovering from an illness. I was severely ill for the past week, and I'm still recovering. So I'm still not at the optimal state yet, but I'll do my best to stay sharp and do my best to try to answer any potential questions you may have. So the module I'm teaching, like I said, is the Introduction to Text Mining with R. As you can see, is placed earlier in the curriculum. So we are mainly targeting an introductory course. And in the beginning of the course, we'll cover some of the foundational concepts that you will likely encounter in text mining. And I'll give some examples so that you can have a basic or foundational understanding of those concepts. And then we'll go into a little bit of a more specialized topic, that is topic modeling. And I will go through the whole process or the steps of doing topic modeling, and we'll be using the data from the Project Gutenberg. Actually, there is a dedicated package in R, which makes everything a whole lot easier. And we'll be looking at the outputs together to see how to interpret the results, how to validate the model, things like that. And then you will be able to do your own hands-on project using the techniques we covered during the session. And depending on your experience or the level of challenge you want, you can either do it with the example and the scripts I prepared, or you can try to do it with different texts from the Gutenberg project or using your own data. So even though this course is targeting beginners and assuming no knowledge of or experience with R, still there is a certain element of flexibility embedded within the course, so that hopefully there is something for everyone. And near the end of the course, I will be sharing some future resources. So if you're interested in some of the techniques covered during the course, you could have some resources to follow up on. So that's just my very brief introduction of the module, and I'm happy to take further questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we will open up for questions when we've gone through all of the modules. As Hugh isn't here, I will just briefly mention some of the content then of module 3, which is on digital text markup and introduction to text encoding initiative. I'm actually pasting into the chat a link to our website where you can see all the module descriptions if you scroll down that page. So TEI is a very widely used standard for digital text markup. It's used both in research contexts and across large sections of kind of cultural heritage sector. And this is an introductory course that will take you through the basics, particularly looking at how it can be used as a foundational tool in text analysis and research. You'll be able to create some textual TEI markup yourself, and that's why we have a hands-on element with it using the Oxygen software. If you have any specific questions related to the TEI content, then feel free to drop us an email and we'll pass it on. We'll pass it on to Hugh and get back to you. There's a dedicated email address for the data schools, which I'll drop into the chat later. I'd like to now move on to Mary Chester Cadwell to introduce herself and her module, which is number 4. So please take it away, Mary.
Thank you very much, Anne. So I am a senior software developer at the University Library, and I'm also the research software engineering coordinator for CDH. And the module that I'm teaching, it follows on really nicely from Meng's and from Hugh's, because this is a more in-depth look at one specific kind of text mining, named entity recognition, using XML TEI documents. So named entity recognition is recognizing in unstructured text things that represent real world objects and concepts. So it could be places, people, organizations, locations and dates and so on. We've got some letters from the 19th century botanist John Stephen Henslow, who was one of Darwin's close associates. And we're going to look at how to recognize and visualize named entities using machine learning. So we're going to be doing some running these texts through a machine learning model. We'll look at how we can create training data to improve the results of the model. And we'll look at how you can link named entities that you've recognized with existing knowledge bases. So for example, it could be VIF, or VIAF for people, or it could be an equivalent for species names and so on, because there's quite a lot of species names in these letters. So this is suitable for people who have coding experience to get an in-depth look at this, but it's also suitable for people who have no coding experience and don't particularly want to learn how to code. They're just interested in the concepts. So to this end, I'm running 2 tracks. Everyone will join for exactly the same sessions. All of the material will be available to everyone. So you don't have to choose at the beginning which track to follow. You can see the materials, come to the sessions, make your decision, follow where you want. But essentially it means that for those who don't want to code, you can learn everything you need to learn without any coding. For those who do code, it should be suitable for those who are near the beginning and those who are intermediate. There are an increasing level of things you can do. You can, and I'll give full directions on how to work your way through the materials depending on your interest and your level of coding experience.
Fantastic, thanks very much, Mary. And again, we'll take detailed questions when we open up in a second. So the final 2 modules, which I'll just introduce briefly, are Basic Principles of Data Visualization, which is going to be taught by Tobias Lunde. This is a very a kind of general overview of how to make data visually attractive, compelling, accurate, presented accurately. It's software agnostic. It is not assuming using any software, particular software or programming language. It's more a conceptual introduction to how data visualization works, what works well when visualizing data. The final module is again mine, which kind of bookends the program. I'll have a short session which will look at data sustainability, preservation and destruction, in a sense the 2 kind of opposite ends of the spectrum about what the problem of how to preserve the data that you want, but also the challenges of destroying the data that you don't want to keep. And that will wrap up the main program of the school. We will then have a final plenary session, which will be an opportunity really for participants to reflect on what they've learned in the school. We'll also talk about next steps that you could take in terms of developing your skills further. So thanks. I'm going to hand back to Irving so we can go to the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Anne, Meng and Mary. So now the floor is yours for questions.